Poker's legendary champions, next-generation stars, and tireless ambassadors of the game, sharing their wisdom and guiding your journey to high achievement on the green felt. This is Chasing Poker Greatness with your host, Brad Wilson.
Welcome to the show, you Chasing Poker Greatness maniac, you. Today's guest on CPG is one of the most prolific CPG guests of all time, and of course one of my personal favorites, the always incredible Carlos Welch. And because I know Carlos is so great, today's show is a very special one indeed, because the man has recently claimed some brand spanking new hardware. He scooped up event number 8 in the 2021 WSOP Online Poker Series for $124K and claimed his first WSOP gold bracelet. If you're new to Chasing Poker Greatness or somehow missed the earlier episodes with Carlos, which if you did, you'll be serving yourself very well by going back and checking them out after this, he's well known in the world of poker for being the dude who plays and coaches poker professionally while living out of his Prius. One of the things that makes me very much respect and envy about Carlos is his fearlessness in living life on exactly his terms. In 2011, an Australian hospice care worker named Bronnie Ware published a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Number 1 on that list is I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I can tell you with total confidence, Carlos will not have that regret. And because I love you so much, I spent like 20 minutes digging up this beautiful tweet from waitbutwhy.com founder Tim Urban, who said, quote, "If you went back in time before your birth, you'd be terrified to do anything because you'd know that even the smallest nudges to the present can have major impacts on the future. Applied to today, this is a reminder that how you live each day really does matter because it changes your future. So if you're not yet living a life that's true to yourself, whatever that may mean to you, today is an excellent day to get that ball rolling." Now, in today's conversation with Carlos Welch, you're going to learn the clever way Carlos structures his poker aspirations, all of his thoughts and feelings while reflecting on his WSOP score, the heart-melting plan Carlos has for spending his newly acquired prize money, and much, much more. Before you dive into today's episode with Carlos Welch, the show is sponsored by me, Coach Brad Wilson. In 2020, I was teetering on the verge of pulling the plug on the CPG project. I was working extremely exhausting 60-hour weeks and averaging a massive $6 an hour. Before I threw in the towel, I decided I was going to grit my teeth, face my largest inner fear, and throw every ounce of my being into creating the best poker courses I possibly could. If they were awful, you hated them, and everybody on social media made fun of me, so be it. At least I could say I went down swinging. As it turned out, creating those courses massively upgraded my own game, were so beloved by my villagers that I now have a list of 50 or so customers who instantly buy anything I offer, and are the reason why Chasing Poker Greatness is still going strong. So what makes my courses so different from everything else on the market? I sell plug-and-play winning poker strategies in very specific spots that anyone of any skill level can memorize and use. So if you'd like to both support what I do at CPG while also massively upgrading your poker game in specific spots, visit chasingpokergreatness.com/courses. The spots covered at chasingpokergreatness.com/courses so far are pre-flop strategy, c-betting versus fish on the flop, turn, and river in single raise pots, and obliterating the poor souls who donk bet into you on the flop, turn, or river. More spots are coming very soon, and the offerings will always be updated at chasingpokergreatness.com/courses. And now, without any further ado, I bring to you friend, coach, trailblazer, and now champion, Carlos Welch. Carlos, welcome back, sir. How you doing?
Great, man. Happy to be here as always.
Yeah, I think this is the first time I've seen your face in one of these. The podcast listener won't be able to see it, but for me.
Yeah. I want to say up until this point, I was always in some spot with shady internet. And but I'm actually in a spot with decent internet now, so I can use the webcam.
Yeah, you ripped off your WSOP bracelet win. Now you're balling out of control at this $11 room at the Rio.
Exactly. Exactly.
I was telling one of my students yesterday, I think it was one of my students, that like outside of, John and Coach Thomas, my Tactical Tuesday co-hosts, I'm pretty sure you've been on Chasing Poker Greatness more than anybody else. Like this is your fourth or fifth time. And it's always great having you on, man.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. That tends to be my MO. I'm like a toe fungus. I come and I don't leave.
Yeah, for somebody that like is hit or miss on interacting with other humans, somehow like we latch on to you. We're like, we need to bring Carlos back. I don't know if he loves us or not, but we need him.
Right.
Well, we've had some news. We've had some news, so let's just dive straight into the news and talk about what's been going on.
So what's been going on is this. I was fortunate enough to win a WSOP bracelet in the event 8 crazy 8s of the World Series Online on July 8th. So what was that, like 3 weeks ago? So cool little piece of jewelry, and it came with a little bit of gas money.
How's it feel, man? Like first episode on CPG, by the way, you're quipped that you're chasing poker mediocrity. I feel like there's been some growth and change in the last couple of years.
Definitely growth and change, but I'm still going to continue to chase poker mediocrity.
I think you caught it. Like you've caught it already, man.
I won a tournament. I've won tournaments before. This just so happens to be a tournament that has some jury up top, but it's no different. What I'm not going to do is take that money and start firing off 10Ks where you actually find poker greatness.
Only on Ignition, though, right?
If they ever run 10Ks, I would definitely fire those for sure.
Yeah. Well, how'd it go down? Give me the story. So here's what happened for me. I woke up oblivious to everything and saw that you had tweeted like you were 1 of 8 for a bracelet. And then I was like, oh shit. Like, I wonder how he did. And then I like saw the Twitch stream and skipped 3 hours right to the end. And I was like, oh fuck, he's there. Like he's heads up. He's going to take it down. And I got to say, like, made my day. Like that was fucking awesome news. I was so pumped for you.
People have been asking me details of the tournament and how it went. It is like all a blur. And what's so funny is I have the hand history and I've vaguely looked at it once or twice, but haven't gone in detail because of course we're going to use that to make some sort of poker training product.
Hey, got to use it.
Yeah, exactly. So from what I can remember, I know I was short coming into the final table. I do remember the thought process going in. And this goes back to what we talked about with chasing mediocrity. So I'm going deep in this bracelet event. First of all,
can I pause you for a moment? Because we got time here, right? So let's talk about the lead up and like the slate you were playing, any expectations, why were you in this event in the first place? Like,
this is exactly the story I'm getting at because you were there on the last episode when we had this conversation I was in a Super 8 in Barstow. And the plan was to get a diamond card so that I could come to the World Series and instead the Rio for $11 a night. But we, I don't know if we got into this on that episode, but the reason I even wanted to play World Series events is because I'm a poker coach now. I'm selling poker training products, but a lot of people who are kind of newer to poker, and honestly, even some older people to poker, don't know me because I don't play live. And so if you go on my Hendon Mob like the last live result I had was like 2019, and that was I had like three cashes that year, 3 or 4 cashes, and like somebody was like, "This guy's not a good coach." He only had like 3 or 4 cashes that year. In reality, I probably played 6 tournaments that year.
Let's
Um,
let's dive into that because you know how big of a priority is growing your coaching business and growing that side of your revenue streams, because it seems like making the conscious decision to play in these events means that it's a pretty high priority, right?
it is the priority. It's the only priority. And the thing I would say is, I didn't get into poker to be the greatest poker player. I got into poker because I grew up poor and this was a way to make money. And if I'm looking at this as a way of getting out of poverty, just, banking tournaments isn't going to do it, because if the money basically goes back into buy-ins, like it can keep you afloat. But unless I am one of the great, poker players, which I'm not even close to it, eventually, I'm gonna be in a worse financial position I am in now if I just play, because if I play against tougher competition in order to try to be great, because everybody hits downswings. So I'm using this as an opportunity to provide some stability for my family, and also to build a poker business. And the great the main reason why I really want to do that is because I want to show people that you don't have to be an elite poker player in order to play this game for a living. I'm the poster boy of that. And so that's why I'm really big on the mediocre thing, because there's some other guy that sucks listening to us right now. And I want to show him that in 10 years, he can be he can play this game for a living the way I have been able to do.
So it's tactical. You're positioning yourself to your you're positioning yourself to your I get it now. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt either that, like, you're a substitute teacher, right? And I assume that, like, teaching probably resonates with you. It gives you some level of fulfillment as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually doing a bunch of interviews after this Bracelet event. So before we started talking today, I was working on an interview for Poker News, where the questions they sent me, I'm looking at this first question. I'm like, is this like a job application? It's like, tell us about your childhood, your education, your work history. And so I've actually been going back and talking about how I got into teaching. So I was always a good math student. And so in high school, I tutored the football players. And I also tutored like the kids of family and friends in the neighborhood when they were like, third, fourth, fifth grade. And just for fun, because I enjoy math. I'm like really, a nerd when it comes to that kind of stuff. And after high school, I started doing other things like first I was a web designer. Then I started selling real estate as one of the ways that I've always heard was good to get out of poverty. But I started right during the real estate bubble, the crisis, so that didn't work out.
Perfect
Now,
timing.
yeah, so now I'm stuck without a job, and and I have a degree in finance, but nobody would hire me because I didn't have experience. And the only way I could get experience, the only way I could get a job without experience using my degree was to be a math teacher, because they were just desperate for anyone. And so I was like, well, I enjoyed tutoring in high school, and I enjoyed tutoring the neighborhood kids. So let me try being a teacher. And yeah, I fell in love with it. Like I love teaching. And at the end of the day, poker is just a math game. And so I'm kind of continuing to do the same thing if you look at it that way.
Yeah, when you kind of like peel back the curtains and like are able to kind of look at the matrix of like what poker is, like at its base root level, like it's just pure math. Like it's just a pure, everything is just pure math. And
it's hidden. It's hidden. And this is the thing that I didn't think about it until you just said that, but that's what would happen in school. I would be teaching kids. If you, and we've talked about how I think I remember you saying you didn't enjoy math in school.
Hated it.
Is that, yeah.
Well, I loved learning and I loved exploring, but I hated the methodology in which it was taught, that I had to show my work and I couldn't figure things out on my own. That part I hated.
I'm curious if this was the case with you, because this was like almost universal for my students. I would give them a math question. It could be 2 + 2. Obviously, they know that's 4. I can take that same math question and put it into like a 7-sentence word problem, and they wouldn't even try.
Really?
It's like they because it looks intimidating. It's like, oh, the actual math in here is not that hard, but it's hidden by all this other stuff that like I'm trying to like, see through the fog. And poker's the same way. It's like one of the things that I did as a teacher is like I took something that looked scary to the student and showed them how this is just something that they know how to do. Another good example of it that will resonate with you, that may resonate with you, would be, okay, 2 + 2 = 4. That's, maybe you learned that, what, first grade? I don't even remember.
I hope I knew it before I went into school, but
I don't know, man. I have a bad memory about, like, when someone says, like, I don't know, if you show me a picture of a kid, I can't tell the difference between like a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old.
When
like,
people talk about like, when I was 11 or 12, I'm like, you remember when you were 11? Like, I have no memory. It had to have happened, but I have no idea what went on.
Yeah, but at some point in your life, you learn 2 + 2 = 4.
Right.
And then the next year they try to confuse you by saying, well, not next year, maybe a couple of years later, they try to confuse you by saying 6/3 + 8/4. And that looks a lot scarier to the kids. But if I can just show them that this is the same thing as 2 + 2 = 4, and then you start, once you get into like, square roots, they can do the same thing. It's like they're just hiding the simple stuff in more complicated structure. And so I just break the complicated thing down to the simple. And that made me successful as a math teacher. And I think that also makes me successful as a poker coach.
Well, it's all communication, right? And
yes.
Like, it's figuring out how to communicate effectively to the person that's trying to learn and teach them from like the paradigm that they're in, and not the one that you want them to be in, not the one that you're in. It's understanding like how they think and then explaining things in a language that they understand. And that's really like the trick or art to coaching, teaching. And that's how you become an effective communicator, really an effective teacher. But yeah, it sounds like, so I know that like in 2 episodes ago, I was like exhorting you to like double your prices, which I think you eventually did.
Yes.
These days, I think your price is probably going to go up. I mean, you got some hardware now, even though it is one tournament. People value that tournament more than most other tournaments, right? Has business picked up these last couple of weeks, or?
Yes, I'm exhausted. Business has picked up. On top, at the same, here's the funny thing about this experience. Business has picked up at the same time that interview requests have picked up, and like beta testing poker products requests has picked up, all while I'm still playing tournaments. And then also trying to make time to go like, share this experience with my family. So like I'm getting like 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, trying to like fit all this stuff in. So I was telling a friend that winning the bracelet is almost like getting an additional payout that comes in the form of like a lifetime dividend.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Those guys, like, the Esfandiaris, and like Antonio's great. He's world-class, amazing poker player. You win the right tournament at the right time when poker's booming on the WPT, that changes your life. Like, it just does. The downstream revenue from that is just, you get opportunities that other people don't. It's worth, you could honestly take $0 for first place.
Yeah.
And it would make like 100 times more than whatever, or 50 times more than whatever first place actually is. And I do want to say, like, I'm very grateful for you taking the time to come on the show. That's the thing that I feel weird. Like, I feel like when I saw that you hit for the bracelet, I'm like, yeah, like I want Carlos back on, but like he's going to be just overwhelmed with like interview requests. Like I don't want to be annoying to you. You know what I mean?
Let me stop you there. I'm overwhelmed with talking to people I don't know. Or I shouldn't even say that. No, people that I don't know and people that I don't know of. Mm-hmm. There's some people who've contacted me that even though we haven't had many conversations, I know of them, and maybe they've already known of me, or they just, have recently heard of me, and I'm kind of like excited to talk to them. But then there's a lot of people who I don't know at all. They don't know me at all until now. And I don't mind talking to them, but it is more draining in that, because it's less comfortable with me being like an introverted person. And those are the ones that I have trouble fitting in when I rather talk to guys like you.
Well, I just realized, it just dawned on me that like, oh yeah, I bet that's a struggle for you, talking to these people that you don't know, and like just a avalanche of people reaching out to you. Have you told anybody no yet? Like, nah, man, I'm good.
Oh, I don't think I have. And my expectation is that this is going to go like in my mind, I've been saying 2 weeks, but damn, I guess it's been 3 weeks now. So hopefully, so my new expectation is by the time the bracelet events end next week, everybody will have forgotten about me. And then I can go back to living my happy, lonely life. Yeah, I haven't turned anybody down yet, but if somehow I think like 2 more bracelets and all of a sudden this becomes like a real story, I'm going to have to start turning people down.
Yeah, you're going to need like a publicist. Going to need like a gatekeeper for your time. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think that like it's in your best interest to strike while the iron's hot. And like, I think people generally have a pretty short memory. And so like in a few months, you'll be totally fine living your dream in your car, secluded from everybody.
Yeah. It's like, the funny thing is, if you get second in the tournament, nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Yeah.
If you get first in the tournament, everybody cares until, the next series. Like, I couldn't tell you who won the Crazy Eights last year. So this isn't like winning the main event where it's going to be like, CNBC talking to you.
So it's funny that you say that, because right before you came on, I was talking to Justin Saliba, and one of my good friends like got third in the event that he won, and like I only realized it when I looked at the leaderboard and saw like, oh, Jesse's third. Like I didn't reach out to him, I didn't say congrats, like didn't even know about it, right? Like nobody knows who gets third or second.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, you're just the first loser. But before, let me go back to something that I left off on earlier. So we were talking about how on the last episode, I was in Barstow staying at the Wyndham Hotels to get the Diamond card. And the reason I was even interested in playing WSOP events was to like build up that public profile, to like, help sell more coaching products, because my current experience in poker over the last 5 years or so has been online, primarily on Ignition. So although I've done well, there's nowhere for someone to look for that online when they're considering me as a poker coach. So I was like, I noticed that the online events, the WSOP bracelet events, are the only online events that I've seen that actually get reported to Hendon Mob. So I was like, oh, since I'm not going to be playing live, this is a cool way to like get some Hendon Mob cash, just so that people know that, I know what the hell I'm talking about. And so my plan was to get a bunch of cashes and maybe a deep run and possibly a final table and take ninth. Wasn't thinking about a bracelet, even deep into that tournament. To get back to your question, like how the tournament went, I definitely purposely made some mistakes towards the end, because I was playing to make the final table as opposed to playing to win. And that is something that this is like the, mediocre poker player thing, is I think that's important for those of us who aren't chasing poker greatness, is you want these milestones. So the way I always tell people is when I first started playing live tournaments, my goal was to like bag that. Well, no, first it was like lunch, the dinner break. It's like, oh, I've never made a dinner break. Like making a dinner break, especially there's some tournaments where you get like a $10 off dinner coupon if you make the break. And I remember the first time I got one of those, it was like a bracelet. I was like holding it up. I was like, yeah, I got the $10 coupon. Yes, I finally did it.
Any interview requests for that accomplishment?
No, only Andrew was willing to talk to me after that. And so I made my first dinner break, got my first $10 dinner coupon. And then, once I was been there, done that, it was time to reach for the next milestone, which was making day 2 and bagging. To this day, people will still have this fascination with, oh, I bagged. But once I did that, it was now time to like, actually try to cash. This was back when bagging didn't mean cashing. Now I think a lot of days now, if you make day 2, you get into the money. But so I'm going through these milestones. The first time I played the main event in 2015, wasn't planning to win. I was playing it to cash. Once I cashed it, the next year I was planning to win, and I took a correct but not high variance, but I took a correct line against Maria Ho at the beginning of day 3 of the main event in 2016. And it didn't work out for me, where if that was my first time playing it and I was just trying to cash, I would have taken a way more low variance and incorrect line. So I still would have lost the hand, but I still would have been in the tournament, and I probably would have cashed with like 5 big blinds. But I already cashed the year before.
Did she call it the hand that she was supposed to?
Yeah, it was, I'll tell you the hand. So 50 bigs effective. It's me, the beginning of day 3, and I'm at the table. Maria is 2 to my left, and I want to say 2 to her left is I'm gonna forget this guy's name. Benjamin something, David
Benjamin.
David Benjamin. So there's all these like known TV crushers at the table, and then also some few people that were good that I just didn't know, because I look up all my opponents before I get there. I was by far the most inexperienced player at the table. So I knew Maria, if she looked that stuff up, which I assume she does, that she was going to come after me. So I already decided, okay, late position, button versus big blind. Like, she's going to 3-bet me a lot if I open the button. Like, what's my 4-betting range? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to be getting it in with, I was like, okay, ace jack. Ace jack is like, I got to expect this, and I can't be scared to, stick it in with, 40 bigs with ace jack offsuit. So that was my plan. Action folds around, and I have queens. And I was like, okay, this is great. Like, I know the 3-bet's coming. So I open, she 3-bet me from the big blind. And now I won a pot or 2. So now I'm up to 50 bigs. And I was like, I know off of 40, I was willing to, do a lot of jamming. But 50, I think what you're supposed to do there is 4-bet call. Now, the old Carlos would have been afraid to 4-bet call. Like, what if she just calls and it comes to ace high, and I just have to give up? Like, the old me would have either jammed in that spot. I would either just, overbet jam, 50 over the 3-bet, or called her 3-bet to try to either just end the hand right there, or to play a smaller pot post flop. But I'd already like coached myself up to do the right thing in that spot. So I knew the correct 4-bet sizing. And of course, she the look on her face was like, oh my God, this inexperienced player is like 4-betting as opposed to like jamming. Because when a fish jams there, it's like ace king so often.
Yeah, every time.
So the fact that I 4-bet, she's like, oh my God, this guy has aces. But then she kind of like reluctantly shoved with ace king, and I called, and she flopped 2 aces. But I was super happy. What's funny is Tournament Poker Edge had a booth in the hall of the Rio that year. So going into the tournament, I'm sitting out in the hall with the guys, and we're like, they giving me a pep talk. It's like, man, you can do this, man. Like, this is your time. And I go in all excited. And no, I go in kind of nervous. I'm kind of like, not nervous. I'm kind of like in fight mode. I'm not smiling. I'm like a boxer before the end of the day. And I go in and I come out 15 minutes later with a smile on my face. And I'm like, I'm out. And it was like, wait a minute, you're out and you're happy? I was like, I'm happy for a couple of reasons. A, I'm proud of myself for playing the hand correctly. B, technically I got sucked out on. So I'll take that, get sucked out on by a better player. I'm happy with that. And more importantly, one of my goals that year was to make day 3, which I did, and to not bubble. And technically I didn't bubble because I busted at the beginning of day 3 as opposed to the end of day 3. And so for busting the main event, I think everything that could go right to bust the main event went right for me that day. So I was happy.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for playing the way you want to play and performing the way that you want to perform. I interviewed an Olympic swimmer many years back, and she was telling me that basically she swam at the Olympics. She ended up getting silver, but basically scored a personal best time, better than she had ever done before. And like, she was like pumping, like fist pumping, right? When she saw her time, like on the scoreboard, and people thought that like, she thought she won, but she was like, no, like I just set a personal best. Like that's better than I could have hoped to do. And so like, celebrating for performing at a high level, especially when there's tons of pressure, I think it's something that like everybody should do, right? Like we should take the good with the bad.
Yeah. And in this tournament, I cashed the main event before, and this would have been like my first non-main event bracelet event cash. But I'd already cashed a more prestigious event, so I wasn't worried about cashing the bracelet event that I eventually won. The thing I wanted to do was make a WSOP final table. I was like, yeah, if I can make the final table, I can use that when I'm selling products or coaching, like a WSOP final tableist. So I was like, 12 players out, I was probably making some insane folds just to get there. And that's why I came into the final table short.
I gotta say, Carlos, I mean, you may be using it to sell your product, but there's no way like the title of this episode is going to be Carlos Welch, WSOP final tableist.
that was the plan until I actually won it. And then like once I made the final table, I started moving my milestones up. Okay. So my biggest cash up until that point was 27,000.
So you made a WSOP final table before you won this bracelet?
No, when I made this final table.
Oh, that was when you changed your goals.
Right. So immediately after making the final table, it wasn't like, okay, ladder to 6, because 6 wouldn't beat my all-time score. So my goal at that point was to ladder to like 4th or 5th, whichever one paid like 35,000, I think would have been my highest score. So that was my goal. Now, once I made that goal, that's when I think I started to play better. Because like, okay, there's really no other milestone for me to make at this point except for winning. So that's when I said, screw it. And I then started making potentially some bad ICM decisions. And I went from like potentially too tight and passive to a little bit too loosey-goosey. But it worked out.
What's interesting about it, like we alluded to earlier, is like the difference between like 5th and 2nd isn't so much for your business, the business side of it, like the coaching, but the difference between 2nd and 1st is a pretty damn big deal. So you're very incentivized to get 1st because of all the downstream money that you can make, just now you're a WSOP bracelet winner, right? So like that matters way more than, laddering from like 4th to 3rd or 3rd to 2nd.
True. You just reminded me of the last thing I'll say on this topic. One of my other goals coming into this was, even if I don't make a final table, even if I don't cash, maybe I can get in some updates. And so if they like see my name in a bunch of WSOP updates and I like retweet those, like maybe that also, somebody will see that and say, hey, this guy has been battling with Negreanu. Maybe he is a good coach.
Come on, you are like you're a co-host on like the Thinking Poker podcast. You've been around. Like people know you, right? Like I feel like this is. I mean, does this really move the needle? I mean, I know more is better, but like I see Carlos on Thinking Poker. Like I'm gonna think, he's that's a high level dude. Like I see Carlos in like a update on Poker News. I'm like, he's playing a tournament.
True, but there's a certain type of poker player who doesn't listen to Thinking Poker, but I say a certain type as if this is a small number of people. There's some people who don't listen to Thinking Poker who know who Phil Hellmuth is, as if that's not like 95% of the poker players. Right. So it's like, I think for some of those guys, me being able to like win a hand against Phil Hellmuth may overshadow the 10 episodes I've done on Thinking Poker.
Yeah.
So I was going after that market.
You're probably thinking about it more rationally than me. Like I'm thinking about it like from the purist perspective of like, you probably got looking at it the right way though.
Yeah, you're thinking about it from people who are you're thinking about it from the perspective of people who are on my level who probably wouldn't hire me for coaching anyway. I'm thinking about the mediocre poker players like, old Carlos.
Well, I mean, I've got a course called Fish in a Barrel, right? So like I use the F word fairly prominently. And the reality is like everybody starts out as a fish, right? Like when you're unstudied, when you don't know much about poker, nobody like just comes out of their mother's womb as a poker savant. We all start at the same point. And so like, there's lower level poker players who are fish, who are beginners that find out about you through, an outlet like Poker News and then investigate. Like that to me makes a lot of sense. And those are the type of people that, I think that you're going to do an amazing job as a teacher, breaking things down simply for those lower entry level players. And like, yeah. So again, you're much smarter at business than me. So
I can teach that guy to be like me, but Phil Galfond can't teach that guy to be like him.
Well, yeah. I mean,
that's what I mean by mediocre poker player.
Well, I mean, I've talked about it a lot before on this show, but like teaching and playing are separate skill sets, and they both merit growth and energy and thought and reflection. And like there are great poker players like a Phil Galfond. I'm not saying Phil Galfond specifically, that are shitty ass teachers and can't teach anybody how to beat a 1-2 no limit game. Like,
right.
They're just different skill sets.
And even if they are great teachers, if they do have some level of like, innate poker talent, that can't be taught. Like, Phil Hellmuth can't teach white magic. I
don't even think he can define white magic. That's
yeah.
Hard to teach something that you can't define.
Right. I can definitely teach people how to struggle through the micros for years and to get it and to work their way into a position where they can bink a bracelet.
You survived pre-flop boot camp. You've shot the fish in a barrel. Now, prepare yourself for the feeding frenzy. A comprehensive strategy for gutting every fish in your player pool. Data-driven hero bluffs, light call-downs, and perfect value bets that are maximally designed to hurt some feelings. Feeding Frenzy. Available now at chasingpokergreatness.com/feeding frenzy.
This is a call out to kind of all the trainers in the market. I think that like it is within them to teach people, but like I've learned so much about poker in the last year and a half through teaching. through like basically trying to figure out like what the hell's happening in this game. Like I said before, it's kind of like you look and see the matrix and just all the ones and zeros, and like fundamentally what's happening when I check raise here, like what are all the data points, what's everything being considered, why are we supposed to check raise this specific hand in this specific spot, and just really trying to get to the core of what poker is and like what is happening with each decision that gets made, and like trying to figure out how to communicate that information to people on like a broad scale. It's difficult, to say the least. It's way more difficult than learning how to be a winning poker player was for me. But at the end of the day, I am such a better poker player because of it, because like I feel just total confidence in my understanding of like specific spots and then being able to figure things out because I understand all the variables in play, right?
Yeah. Being a coach definitely makes you a better player as well.
Yeah, I mean, it should. Anyway, if it's not, you probably need to reflect on how you're coaching people.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about, what projects are going on now that you've had this whirlwind of interviews. You probably, I don't know if you've even had time to really put a lot of thought into it.
The main thing that just jumped out immediately was to do a product based on the win, the bracelet win. So I'm going to work with my partner, Alexander Fitzgerald, to develop that. He and I did the how to obliterate passive tournaments. I guess
such a catchy name.
Yeah. So catchy that I have trouble remembering it unless I'm reading it off the screen like I just did. But so there's that. But this one is going to be honest. And
wow, bad. That's not branding there.
It sounds so bad.
All the other ones are dishonest. This one,
not that the last one wasn't honest. This one is going to be honest about the fact that I did not consider myself an expert in this field, where I do consider myself an expert in the passive fields on sites like Ignition. So I've made some mistakes throughout this tournament, and I'm also going to bring in better players like Alex, get some basically several of my friends who are better players and coaches to kind of give me input on the things I did wrong throughout this product.
Man, you're working it. You're working it from every angle. You're getting coached. You're getting paid. You're selling it.
So basically what this is going to be is to show people who are like me things that the mistakes I made along the way. This is what you need to look out for. And this is why, because Andrew says it, or Alex says it, or Ryan says it. And there's, these are the things that Carlos did well because those guys said it. And then also at this point, there's, we can check stuff with solvers as well. So this isn't going to be an expert account of do as I say. It's going to be a almost like a peer-to-peer account of like this, like I'm going to put you in the experience. Like not everybody can play these bracelet events. So we're going to put this, I'm hoping we can do this in a way to where the viewer kind of gets put in the situations that I was in and see how they would handle it, and then have my coaches tell them what they should do.
How much have you studied business? Because as you're saying this, like I'm thinking like you've got your, quote unquote avatar pretty well fleshed out, right? Like you understand what your market needs and what you think would be helpful and what they would love. So it feels like, you've looked into the business side of this a bit, or maybe you're just an intuitive business genius.
I can't. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this like how long have we been on? Like 30 minutes ago, I think I mentioned that I have a degree in finance.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. Also, just being a math guy.
I didn't know finance. I mean, I know that finance is within business, but I thought it was like accounting.
That's part of it, but of course you take marketing courses and what else throughout the thing. So there's that. But the biggest thing is, probably one of the biggest non-poker influences on my life was Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek. So that's where I got a lot of my business acumen, and just being a curious person when it comes to that. So like when you grow up in poverty, and you're a halfway intelligent person, you study business. So that's what I've been doing, since I was about 15 years old.
Because it's like it's a way out, right? Like that's the
It's a
escape.
way out. Exactly. It's a way out.
Well, man, I think you've made it out. For now, anyway, till you start firing the 50Ks, then we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely made it out.
I also heard through the grapevine on how you're planning on, leveraging this money, utilizing it. What's on the agenda?
So 2 things are on the agenda. One of them have already happened, and that is a chunk of it has been dumped into Bitcoin at the perfect time. I might add. Like I was sweating so hard. Like, can I get this in before the run up happens? And we've like started to kind of see some of that, but I got in right before that. And then also, I'm gonna buy a house. It's funny. I'm laughing about this now because I've had conversations with a few family members about this. My plan was to buy a big house for my mom, and also whatever relatives that just happen to need a place to stay at the time, because as I've grown up, that was always my grandmother's house. That's like where we all go for Thanksgiving. That's where we all meet up every year, and that's where people go when they don't have anywhere else to go.
And going back to a previous conversations, we talked about how you helped your grandmother out coming up too in the Booker world, paying her electric bill and stuff like that.
Yep, I just bought her a microwave. Yeah, I was gonna buy the house for that, and after talking to a few family members, here's the thing. I was gonna say, like, so as my grandmother gets older, eventually, someone else is gonna have to, like, become the matriarch of the family. And I was like, so if I'll have this house for my mom. And then after talking to having a few conversations with family members, like, hell, maybe she don't want to do that.
That's a good point.
She don't want all these assholes around her either. And so, but then I thought to myself, if she doesn't want to do that, the house will still be there for everybody who just happens to be there at the time. But I was thinking she's kind of already doing that. So
why don't you just ask her?
I am. I just I got a flight planned to go to Vegas, to go to Atlanta in a couple of days. So I will be there to talk to her and finally get to enjoy this experience with family members, because the whole time it's just been like poker people. But the thing is, so I'll tell this story. Somebody might they tend to get, so there's always someone in the family that ends up getting mad at me about the stuff I say publicly, but it is what it is. So
stop listening to his podcast if you're
yeah. So my uncle lived with my grandmother during the start of COVID, and he likes to drink, and he likes to go in and out and drink with his friends. And obviously that's pretty dangerous. This was pre-vaccine, living with, damn, I hope I don't get this number wrong. I'm going to say 70 to 80-year-old woman. And so she kicked him out. And so she kicked my uncle out, and he went to live with my mom, who also, so my mom has an apartment, a smaller apartment. And so there's her, there's my big brother, there's my uncle, there's her father, my grandfather, and my cousin. So even if it turns out she doesn't want to do this, I'm kind of right in assuming it, because she's kind of already doing it, And so, but if she always jokes with my grandfather that, she's going to kick everybody out and move to Vegas. So if she actually decides to do that, then the house would be there for another family member to be the matriarch. And I keep saying matriarch because I can't think of one other person beside me that would be the patriarch. Yeah, the women are definitely the responsible members of my family for sure. So somebody, if it's not my mom or be one of my aunts or somebody will be the person in that house telling people to turn off the lights when they leave.
Well, I mean, you're a traveling gambler that lives out of his car, so
yeah. I can't be the one dealing with everybody's bullshit. Because if it was me, I would have kicked everybody out a long time ago. So because these women have a heart of gold and they're taking care of all these guys, at least I can finance it.
Awesome, man. That's really, really cool. Congratulations. I'm sure that, somebody will be happy in the long run for
a fucking free house. Why
it's a
not?
free house, right? Like somebody's got to be happy about it.
Yeah.
The fucked up part is like, they know you don't want it. Like,
yeah.
Well, man, I guess anything that you're working on, like you mentioned the course that you're going to be building out with Assassin Auto and that gang. I assume it'll have some sort of sexy name at some point, and we'll be able to put that on the website and direct people to it. Depending on when this episode drops, you can hit me up on Twitter and just tell me what name you're thinking about it with the link, and I can put it up there for you. You won a bracelet, dude. Like, how did it feel? Like, we didn't. You're gunning for like 5th when you get the final table. So, like, how did it feel to like take this sucker down?
Not as good as you thought. Not as good as you would think. And the reason for that, I mean, it felt good to win the bracelet. The money didn't feel as good as you would think because I don't want much. So I pretty much already was financially successful for everything. I can remember being dead broke and winning that tournament a couple of years ago for $27,000. That felt way better than winning $125,000, just relatively where I was in my life at the time. So when I won the $27,000, I cried. I cried like a baby. This time it was almost like, oh, I won a tournament. I smiled. I jumped up and down a couple of times when I won the bracelet, but it wasn't like, it didn't feel as good as that $27,000. Not saying it felt bad, obviously, but I think when people ask me that question, how did it feel? They're expecting the type of answer that I would have given you back when I won that $27,000. But this felt like another day at the office that just happened to be a really good day at the office. And if I was if I wasn't super tired at the time, I could have factored in the fact that, actually winning the bracelet is going to help with so many business things down the road. Then it probably would have felt better because of that.
One could make the argument that a mediocre poker player wouldn't really call that a normal day at the office, but I don't want to screw up your branding, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. What's funny is so I didn't play the next day because I stayed up for 32 hours straight, responding to congratulation messages from everybody and recording an emergency podcast with Andrew. When I finally slept, I woke up the next day and I played the next event and I got 31st in that one. And then recently, I think a couple of days ago, I got 13th in another one. So I'm thinking like, what the hell is going on? Now I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like how, is mediocre Carlos continue to run deep in these things? And I can tell you, it's the work that I put in over the past couple of months because obviously I'm experienced battling with the weaker players in the field, but I've also been in some pots with, poker's who's who, and I've been able to hold my own. And, I got to give a shout out to all the people who are doing the GTO stuff, the Play Optimal Poker 2 by Andrew. GTO Check is a program that I use that is kind of like a solver-based thing, DTO poker. Like those things have prepared me to battle with the beast.
I feel like you're giving an acceptance speech right now.
Yeah.
One of these days, you're going to have to like bite the bullet and, look at yourself in the mirror and realize, oh, like there's an exceptional poker player kind of staring back at me here.
Here's when that day is gonna happen. The day I register a Bracelet event and expect to final table it. That's when I'm going to see myself as among those great players, and B, actually play, live Bracelet events. But at this point, I have no intention of playing the main event, or, like when October comes, that's going to be my vacation to rail all my friends. And I'll let them battle with these guys I've been battling with online, because live, I still feel probably like, a fish out of water.
Well, keep the chip on your shoulder. And, I've learned in life that kind of the last person to ever believe in ourself is typically ourself. And when we say that like we're trying to prove something to everybody, we don't really mean everybody. What we really mean is ourselves. Because like most everybody, especially like people like you, most everybody believes in you, I think, at this point, even though you have like the worst online screen name of all time. Very uncreative. Carlos Welch. I can't believe they even put that in there.
That's another marketing thing though. When I signed up for WSOP.com, I wanted people to know that this is me. And so if I happen to do and then I might win a bracelet. I might win $100,000 and do, interviews and talking about buying a house for my mom. And I don't want my mom to see Carlos, one of these like sexual innuendo names these guys have. So it's Carlos, man. It's Carlos Welch. And Poker News, you guys can drop the nickname part out and just put the regular Carlos Welch. But yeah, I definitely didn't want a standard poker screen name on WSOP.com.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I made an account on Global and I'm Chasing Poker Greatness Podcast on. That's my global screen name. I don't even know how they let me have that many characters, but
but that's smart though. At least you're not like toe fungus or something like that.
People ask me, like people like I play like once every 2 months just so they don't take away my sweeps coins. I play like an orbit and people ask me about the podcast. So it works. Like it reminds people that you're a thing, right?
Yes.
Oh man, it's been great having you. I think we'll shut it down here. Got a couple things to talk about off air. Sorry, listener, you don't get to hear all of the conversation between Carlos and I, but anywhere you want to point the listener to learn more about you, to possibly invest in coaching with Carlos Welch.
Yes. So you can primarily find me on Twitter at twitter.com/hiphop101trivia.
You can change your Twitter handle too, right?
I'm going to have to change that now. I didn't know, man. I didn't know how this poker thing is going to work out. So probably end up changing my Twitter handle eventually, or I might start my hip hop trivia back up.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the main place to find me. Also, there's multiple links that I'm sure we can put in the show notes about my products, how to obliterate passive tournaments, and exploiting small stakes tournaments, where I coach my coach, Andrew Brokus, on how to exploit small stakes tournaments. And also Thinking Poker Daily, which is a daily podcast Monday through Friday, hosted by myself, Andrew, and Nate Mavis on Patreon, where we only do strategy hands submitted by the subscribers.
Awesome, man. And I think that like if the measure of a poker coach is in caring and passion, then you can't go very wrong with investing into Carlos, because Carlos full of passion, and I know that the dude cares. And like that's why I send people your way, because that's the number one thing that matters to me. Players need a coach that genuinely cares about their success or failure.
Yes, that's how I got this far, because my coaches care about me. And one of my coaches, Ryan LaPlante, has his training site, Learn Pro Poker, and he does a weekly group coaching session on that site, and you'll see me in there every week as well. So Twitter, Thinking Poker Daily, and Learn Pro Poker, those are the places where you're going to find me, most days.
Man, it's been a pleasure as always. I'm sure we'll be talking again in the near future. Thank you very much for your time and your energy, man. I'm always grateful.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks for listening to Chasing Poker Greatness. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com to get the newsletter. Join the Greatness Village community, book a coaching session, or dive into the latest data-driven poker courses. Follow the show on Twitter @CPG Podcast.